Pokemon Go looks like it's finally going to introduce the #1 feature we've all been requesting, bottle caps. Let's discuss what's been data mined and what this could mean for us all. Bottle caps were originally introduced into the original game series in Gen 7, and they were exchanged to maximise your Pokemon's IVs through hyper training. So there were two types of bottle caps, and that would be silver and gold. So when we consider what the two different leaks I'm going to cover are, it appears this is the system that will be introduced. Before we get into the leak, I'd just like to quickly ask if you find anything useful, drop a like and maybe subscribe. It's free, it'll really help the channel, so let's get into the juicy stuff. Okay, so getting into the leak itself, we have this tweet by the Pokemon group. We can see that they've data mined a first look at hyper training. So confirmed results so far include Pokemon must be set as your buddy. You will need to complete multiple tasks or training. There will be a time limit before it expires. Shadow Pokemon cannot be trained. And there may be a PvP aspect. So bear in mind that this is a placeholder, so it is subject to change. Parts of that will likely be changed, as we will look at in the picture itself going forward. So if we do look at the picture, we can see that there is 3 tasks. All 3 tasks are ×1 attack, so I'm assuming that will be +1 attack to the stats. Potentially that is, you have to complete all 3 to get 1 attack. Maybe it's each one gives 1 attack, we're not exactly sure yet. The tasks themselves, we can see there is 8 segments for walking kilometers. I'm not sure whether it will be 8 kilometers to get 1 attack. I think that would be encouraging people that use the fitness apps or swingers, that kind of thing, bend the TOS to get huge amounts of distance. I feel like that would greatly help those people rather than the average people, but this is only a placeholder. We can also say that it says attached training 2, which implies that there are several levels to the training. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if there are maybe catch tasks, walking tasks, potentially PvP tasks, and you'll have to go through the set of them to then get your stat at the end of it. I would probably expect you would work on 1 stat at a time, so it might be a range of training to do 1 stat. It looks like in this option it is 1 attack stat, and you need to do all of this to get the 1 attack stat. I don't think it would be 3 attack stats gained from walking 8 kilometers. I think it's more likely that this is just a copy and paste job, and that realistically maybe the top one will be walk kilometers, maybe the second one will be catch so many Pokemon, maybe the third one will be win so many GBL matches, just as an example. Okay, so if we look at the second leak, it's again from the Pokemon group. They said they've got some additional information. So some of their observations, they think similar to the Lucky Trinket, the bottle cap may also expire. I did think myself that it probably would act similar to a Lucky Trinket, so that they would be able to sell more tickets and give that as a reward. That seems to be the way that Niantic seems to be monetizing events recently. It says that you can set an IV target for training. So there's a video attached to this which shows you can increase the stat you want. I think it's using the the triple stat increase version, and it's showing them choose which one of the 3 stats they want to increase and how much by. So that's very interesting. You can't lower a Pokemon's IV, which is just common sense. Realistically, the only time I could see someone wanting to do that is for PvP. I don't see the relevance of that, for my own gameplay at least. And it appears that there's a limit to how much improvement each Pokemon can have. That one may be slightly more concerning in terms of peak efficiency of how you want to use it. If you, for instance, wanted a Shundo Mew, but your Mew is 78%, just as an example, you don't really want to find out there's a cap on how much you can do. So that's interesting. It's probably understandable, which means people are going to prioritize ones very close to Hundo, which is what I was already going to recommend, basically. So it says there's two types of items to increase IVs. and that's a single stat increase and a triple stat increase. The example they've used in their video is the triple stat increase. That allows all 3 stats to be modified. So that seems to come into play in terms of how in the original games there was the silver and the gold bottle cap. It seems to just be a similar mechanic in terms of the gold one was better than the silver one, and in this one it'll be the triple stat will be better than the single stat. My own theory with this is that maybe in future event tickets the single stat will be in the non-paid version, and maybe you might get an additional triple stat increase one in the paid version. We still need to find out more in terms of when this is going to come out and more details, but that seems to make the most sense to me. And you can see what I was saying in the video that's attached as well with the increase. The interesting thing in terms of the video is that you can see that the increased stats are not the same colour as the regular stats. Where the regular stats of a hundo would have like the pinky red kind of colour, the increased stats are not that colour, which will let people see if your, say, shundo is a shundo you've obtained regularly or whether it's a hyper-trained shundo. I think a lot of people have basically been calling for this, saying if bottle caps are introduced there should be a way to differentiate. So there's still some kind of rarity to wild shundos or raid shundos or trade shundos, as opposed to just being able to get as many shundos as you want done. So that is interesting. So getting into the speculation side of it, there's been a long wait while people have been waiting for this to come out. It was getting to the point I thought maybe it never would come out, or maybe it would be after all of the legendaries and the game is potentially on the verge of dying. So I'm a little surprised it's come out now. I have thought for a long time that they would bottleneck it in some way, so that you really have to grind for them, in case it kind of kills the game a little bit in terms of how many shundos there are, etc. So I think there'll probably be some kind of system in place where maybe you need some form of energy to start the research, or maybe they will be bottle caps themselves. I'm not sure whether they will just straight up take the name bottle caps from the main game series, but I could see some kind of mechanic where you need to earn the bottle caps themselves to start the research. The research itself is its own separate thing you then have to grind out. But I wouldn't be shocked if the actual bottle caps themselves are difficult to obtain, whether that's through PvP, maybe catch 50,000 Pokemon. Probably not 50,000, but I could see some kind of mechanic where it basically makes you grind to get the next bottle cap each time. Maybe a certain amount of raids that you've completed. So there is that. I think also we could see some kind of mechanic where each stat you increase, it could then cost more bottle caps for each stat. If bottle caps are something you have a range of, like say 100, and it costs X amount to start the hyper training, I could see maybe that it would cost more for each stat you increase. So the first stat costs say 5, second stat costs 10. Just as an example, I could see that being a thing to try and discourage people maybe getting 10, 10, 10s all the way up, or maybe they'll be discouraged based on rarity. I think there is also potentially a chance that the cost would be based on how high of a percentage the Pokemon already is as an IV. So the closer to 100%, the more expensive it is. So maybe that would be a kind of thing where you're weighing up the cost to the gains. Potentially a 98% to 100% would cost a lot more than getting something up a little closer. I think realistically we all know people will want shundos. So when I speak of cost, it could be referring to how hard the challenges are also. As an example, a common Pokemon could need lower challenges as part of the hyper training. As an example, a common Pokemon may need to walk 5 kilometers or 5 GBL wins as a task. A legendary could cost 25 kilometers walked each time, 25 wins. A mythical could cost 50k walked, 50 wins in GBL. So there's still a lot we don't actually know yet. This is just the very first thing that's came out about this that's been data mined. I don't think that they will make bottle caps very easy to grind. I think there will be some level of you need to work for this, because otherwise people will get a lot of hundos that are legendaries, a lot of shundos, maybe it would be a good thing in the short run, but maybe it would kind of kill content a little bit, because people will be like, I don't need to do this raid there, I already have a shundo, or I have a hundo of it. So it might make raiding lobbies, that kind of thing, a bit less full, if it's cheap as chips to get. So I think it will be interesting to see how they will balance flooding the game full of increased Pokemon and how hard it will be to get it. It is also interesting that shadows can't be enhanced. Maybe that's due to the nature of shadows, where they're kind of out of control or evil, that kind of thing, and they need to be purified to be saved. Maybe it's that kind of thing where you can't do it because of that, and they're not really a tamed Pokemon. Or maybe it's just the fact that shadows being 20% stronger than your average Pokemon, you could get some absolutely godly teams if you just got loads of shadow hundos. So we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. So in terms of usability, I would have thought that the smartest thing would be to either do 98% hundos, 98% shinies, or mythicals. As an example, I would have thought the number one thing that people might want to get is a Shundo Mew, now that Mew is shiny. I mean, it has been for a while, but just as an example, you could get 150 hundos for Kanto ticked off, as I'm very close to doing, but it was pure luck whether you were going to get the Mew. My friend locally got the Hundo Mew. Mine, I think, are nowhere near. Maybe an 89 shiny potentially as a Mew is my best. If it was quite cheap to do the hyper training, I could just get that as a Shundo, tick that off. Could also do it with regional Pokemon. I'm trying to think of an example, but there's, say Skidoo, you could trade a Skidoo if it's a 96 from a lucky trade. You only need to hyper train twice, and you have a hundo. You don't have to worry about lucky trading it again. It doesn't matter whether you need to travel or anything like that. So also lucky trades could be affected. Lucky trades, you no longer would necessarily be needing hundos. You could be like a 98 or a 96. That's close enough. I'll just hyper train it now. I'll ask other people for other things, different raid things, or just different meta Pokemon or different PvP Pokemon if you're that inclined. Personally, I'm not. I'm unlikely to really cover the PvP aspect of the game that much, as it doesn't interest me, but I know a lot of people do play it. Okay, so looking at my own account, I have currently 25 shiny 98%, which I've marked. I probably have some that I haven't named out of laziness. You know how it is when you're playing and the grind is always happening and there's always new things. There are probably more. I wouldn't be shocked if I have 40. I do tend to trade one shiny a day with someone locally. Unless it's XL trading, then I'll do a legendary. But 8 of the 25 that I have marked are legendary. Most of them I either need as a hundo to be ticked off, like Bacon Boy, or Mewtwo. That is my first choice I am going to use it on, I'll be honest. So I have a lot of potential choice for shundos. Another example would be I can't remember what the panda was in the Fuzzy Buddy event. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I have it 98 shiny. I still need it for my hundo decks. I think I need 2 of them. That's an easy one to work on. There are so many options. So I currently have 13 shundos, but I could very quickly increase that using, just from those 25 alone, I could turn that into 38 very quickly if it's something that's very quick to do, the hyper training, or quite cheap, so that's why I think they will limit it. Or you could even work on your hundo count. I've just looked at my account and I have over 450 Pokemon that are 98%, including over 50 legendary. So I could very rapidly increase the hundo legendary collection I have. Then I wouldn't have as much pressure to raid particular ones. I could just use my free pass. Or one of my long-term gains was to then, once I collected all of the legendaries, I could maybe then start raiding the 1 and 3 stars, like the Unknown, the Costume Pokemon, and use my pass on that instead, which currently I don't. So, overall, I am completely thrilled with this news. I think this will be the best thing they've introduced in Pokemon Go in maybe ever. I think the Recently the buddy power boost was great for raids. I think before they nerfed the cost of the remote raids were fantastic. The COVID boost incense was fantastic. Raids themselves a year or two after the game came out. The appraisal system being upgraded. There's been a bunch of good releases in the game since it came out. I personally think bottle caps will be the best thing they will ever introduce into this game, at least in terms of features. So, with that said, let me know what you think of potentially bottle caps being added into Pokemon Go. What will you use your first one on? Mine will be the 98% Shiny Mewtwo I have, absolutely no hesitation, but let me know what you think, and have a nice one guys, and see you in the next video.